My name is Daniel, and for years, I thought I had the perfect life, a stable job, a beautiful, ambitious wife, and dreams of 2 kids we'd already named. But everything changed the day I walked into her office and saw her giggling a little too closely with her British boss. That was the first crack in the glass. What followed wasn't just betrayal. It was a calculated plan to drug me, deceive me, and destroy everything we built together. You won't believe how far she was willing to go, and what I did when I found out. Let me take you back to where it all began. For most of our marriage, I truly believed I had it all. A good job as an accountant, a modest but cozy home, and Clara, my wife, my best friend, the woman I thought would never betray me. She was beautiful, ambitious, and sharp as a tack. Her smile could light up a room, and her laugh, genuine and uninhibited, made even the worst days feel bearable. We were a team, her and I. At least, that's what I believed. Clara worked at a major entertainment marketing firm called Interglobe Connections. She had joined them 3 years earlier and quickly climbed the corporate ladder, eventually becoming one of the youngest marketing managers in the company. She'd always been a go-getter, the type who could charm anyone in a boardroom, then come home and cuddle up with me like nothing else in the world mattered. I was proud of her, genuinely. I used to brag about her to my buddies, telling them how lucky I was to be married to someone who was not just stunning, but sharp and successful too. We had started talking seriously about having kids. We even picked names, Jason for a boy, Emily for a girl. We weren't in a rush, but the dream was there, alive and pulsing in the background of our lives. Then came Marcus Langford. Marcus was the executive vice president of global marketing, tall, silver-haired, British accent, charming to a fault. Clara had mentioned him a few times in passing. He's married, she said. Has kids, 3 from his current wife, 6 more from 2 exes. She used to joke about how expensive his alimony must be. I never thought much of it. Why would I? She always talked about him in a strictly professional way, never personal. That changed the day she casually told me Marcus would be flying in from London and staying in the States for 2 months to oversee some major campaigns. It's a big chance for me to show him what I'm capable of, she said, eyes glowing with ambition. He could be the key to me becoming VP one day. That's great, I said, trying to match her enthusiasm. Would this affect our baby plans? Maybe a little, she replied, twirling her fork as we ate dinner. I just want to focus on work for now. Once he goes back, we'll talk more. It made sense. She was only 28, and we had time. Still, I couldn't shake this subtle unease creeping into my chest. Something about the way she talked about him. It was like she was trying to convince herself as much as she was convincing me. A week after Marcus arrived, I decided to surprise Clara with lunch. Nothing extravagant, just a quick bite, maybe some sushi. I brought her favorite, unagi rolls and green tea from the little place she loved down the street. I walked into her office without warning, smiling like a fool. But what I saw turned my stomach inside out. There she was, standing way too close to Marcus, her hand lightly brushing his arm as she giggled at something he said. Giggled. That wasn't her professional laugh. That was the one she gave me when I used to tickle her on the couch. The kind of laugh that said she was letting her guard down. When she noticed me, she jumped slightly and stepped back. Daniel. Hey, she said quickly. You're early. I thought you had a client meeting. Her face turned a shade paler, and Marcus didn't even pretend to look uncomfortable. In fact, he smirked, a smug, irritating smirk that made my blood boil. This must be the husband, he said with a mocking tone. Pleasure to meet you, little man. I clenched my fists but forced a polite nod. Nice to meet you, Marcus. He didn't even bother responding properly. Running late. He mumbled as he walked past me and out the door, not before flashing one final smirk my way. When the door clicked shut behind him, I turned to Clara. What the hell was that? I asked. And what was with that guy calling me little man, like I'm some kind of joke? Oh, Daniel, she said with an awkward laugh. He's just like that. British charm, you know? It doesn't mean anything. All the girls at work say he flirts with everyone. Yeah? And do you flirt back with everyone too? Her expression shifted, half guilt, half defensiveness. It was harmless. He's the 3rd highest executive in the company. I have to be polite. That didn't look polite, Clara. That looked like a schoolgirl crush. She rolled her eyes. You're overreacting. He's married. He's got kids. I'm married. To you. Her words didn't soothe me. They felt hollow, like she was reading from a script. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if what I saw was the beginning of something, or if it had already begun. I didn't know it then, but that moment would be the crack in the glass, the point of no return. Looking back now, I wish I had trusted my instincts sooner, because what was coming next would shatter everything. The days after that office visit were tense, to say the least. Clara tiptoed around me, avoiding any mention of Marcus or work-related events unless absolutely necessary. But the silence between us said more than words ever could. She knew what I had seen. She knew the damage it caused. Yet, instead of confronting it, she chose to act like everything was fine. I tried to convince myself that maybe I was overreacting. Maybe it was just harmless office flirting, the kind of thing you ignore for the sake of professionalism. But deep down, something gnawed at me, something primal and cold, whispering that this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. A week later, my fears were confirmed. It was a Wednesday evening. We were sitting at the dinner table, plates of spaghetti in front of us, the air thick with quiet. Clara twirled her fork a few times, hesitated, then said casually, "So, Marcus is heading back to London in a couple of weeks." I didn't respond. I just nodded and kept eating. She cleared her throat. "He invited me to dinner before he leaves. Just the two of us. You know, as a farewell." I froze. I didn't look up, didn't react. I let her words sink in. My heart thudded once, twice, then began pounding like a war drum. Slowly, I placed my fork down and raised my eyes to meet hers. "A farewell dinner," I said, voice flat. "Like a business meeting?" She shifted in her seat, eyes darting down to her plate. "Not exactly. More like one night out. Nothing formal. Just dinner. Maybe drinks." My stomach turned to ice. I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed. "So, a date," I said, more of a statement than a question. "No, not a date," she rushed to say. "Just a gesture. He's my boss, Daniel. He's done a lot for my career, and this would be a stepping stone." I cut her off. "Is that what you're calling it now?" Her face flushed. "Come on, you're twisting it. I just want one night. One dinner. You're always traveling for work. You know how this goes. It's not romantic. It's just fun, and it might help with my promotion." My fists clenched under the table. "So now we're trading our marriage for your promotion?" Clara's eyes widened. "Daniel, no. That's not what I'm doing. I love you, you know I do. I just thought maybe, if I asked, you thought I'd say yes?" I asked sharply. "You thought I'd be okay with my wife going out, alone, with a man who openly flirted with you in front of me and called me little man like I was nothing?" She bit her lip, guilt rushing into her expression. "I didn't expect you to react like this." "No, you didn't expect me to find out at all," I said, standing up from the table. "That's the truth, isn't it?" She stood too, hands out in desperation. "Daniel, please, don't be like this. I swear, it's just one dinner. He's leaving. I'll never see him again, and nothing between us will change. I promise you." I shook my head, staring at the woman I thought I knew. "If it means nothing to you, then why are you risking everything for it?" Silence. Her eyes filled with tears, and I could see her lips trembling, but I wasn't moved. "Not this time. Get out," I said coldly. "What? You heard me. Get out of my life. I'll be filing for divorce in the next few days." "Daniel, no. You're overreacting." "No," I said, grabbing my coat from the back of the chair. "You already made your choice. I'm just responding to it." She tried to grab my arm, but I pulled away. "Please don't do this. I love you. I'm your wife." "Then maybe you should have acted like one," I said before walking out the door. As I drove off into the night, my phone began vibrating with calls and texts from her. Messages like, "It's not what you think," and "I would never cheat on you" flooded my screen. But every word felt like static, meaningless noise against the storm raging in my chest. In less than 30 minutes, everything we had built was in ruins. Our love, our future, even those dreams of Jason and Emily, gone. And the worst part? Deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. No, this was only the beginning. After that night, I went completely dark. I didn't answer Clara's calls. I didn't respond to her texts. I needed space, needed time to think, to breathe, to decide if there was even a sliver of this marriage left to salvage. I stayed in a hotel for a couple of nights, told work I needed personal leave, and tried to wrap my head around how fast everything had fallen apart. Clara, meanwhile, was unraveling. I knew her well enough to picture it. pacing the living room, checking her phone every 5 seconds, crying into a wine glass, telling herself this was all just a misunderstanding. But what I didn't know yet was that while I was pulling away, she was being pulled deeper into something far worse than I had imagined. She told me it was just one dinner. But that was a lie. It was a setup from the start. Back at her office, Clara was surrounded by a group of women who thrived on drama and manipulation. Her closest work friend, Lila, had always struck me as the type who couldn't resist stirring the pot. Attractive, bold, and with just enough spite behind her smile to make you uneasy. She and Clara had worked together for years, and from what I'd seen, their friendship was more toxic than loyal. Apparently, once Clara told her about our argument, Lila and the rest of the marketing girls wasted no time coming up with what they called a solution. They knew Clara couldn't bring herself to cheat on me, not directly. So Lila proposed a workaround, drug me. Just enough to knock me out for a few hours. That way, Clara could slip away, spend the night with Marcus, and return before morning. I'd never know. And if I asked, she could play the doting wife who took care of me after I drank too much. I later found out they even gave it a name, Operation Foggy Memory. The drug came from Lila's husband, who worked for a pharmaceutical company. He had access to samples of an experimental sedative, fast-acting, causes short-term memory loss, and impossible to detect without lab testing. The girls were giddy at how foolproof the plan was. Lila bragged she could sneak a vial from her husband's stash and slip it into my drink at the upcoming company party. The worst part? Clara didn't shut it down. She hesitated, yes. She expressed doubt. But she didn't stop them. She let it snowball. She justified it as just one night. A chance to feel powerful, desired, and to get closer to the promotion she was so obsessed with. She told herself I wouldn't find out, that I'd never be hurt, that everything would go back to normal. But what she didn't know was that I already knew everything. It happened the night I came back home to grab a few more clothes. She had gone to bed, phone still in her hand, screen dim but unlocked. I don't know what compelled me to look. Maybe I already knew. Maybe I was hoping to be wrong. But once I started scrolling, the truth poured out like poison. The group chat was called Queens Only. Inside, message after message detailed their plan. Lila bragging about the drug. Marcy chiming in with ideas for how to get me to drink it. Clara, torn and hesitant at first, eventually texting. Fine, just this once. But no one else can know. I'll make sure he's asleep. My heart shattered in that moment. This wasn't just a betrayal. This was a conspiracy. A coordinated, calculated plan to humiliate me, to drug me like some clueless fool, to hand my wife over to another man while I lay unconscious in a hotel room. I felt physically ill reading it. My hands were trembling. My vision blurred. But I made sure to screenshot every single message. I uploaded the chat history to the cloud, sent it to a private email, and deleted the activity from her phone before placing it gently back beside her. She stirred in bed, murmuring something in her sleep. I stood over her for a moment, watching her, the woman I had once trusted with my entire heart, and felt something inside me harden. I was done reacting. Now, I was going to respond. The next morning, I made a phone call, not to a lawyer, not to a therapist. I called Ray, my godfather, a retired NYPD detective with a no-nonsense attitude and a moral compass forged in fire. When I told him everything, he didn't hesitate. We'll handle this, he said. But you need to keep playing dumb. Let them think they've won. That's how you'll win. Together, we built a plan. I also reached out to two old Army buddies, Kyle and Marcus, brothers in arms who'd helped me through worse battles than this. They didn't ask questions. They just said, tell us where and when. The stage was set. Let them drug me. Let them think I was asleep. Let Marcus wrap his arms around my wife. Because when that hotel door opened, I would be the one standing there, awake, prepared, and absolutely unforgiving. Once the initial shock wore off, I shifted into something colder, something sharper. I wasn't the heartbroken husband anymore. I was a man with a mission. Clara and her co-workers thought they were clever, orchestrating their little betrayal in secret. But I had read every word, every disgusting plan, every mocking joke about me being too straight-laced to notice. They were about to find out just how wrong they were. Ray, my godfather, came over the next morning. The moment I showed him the screenshots, his entire demeanor changed. He didn't speak for a while, just looked through the messages, expression hardening with every line. This isn't just betrayal, he finally said. It's criminal conspiracy. Drugging someone. That's felony territory. And they're leaving evidence like candy wrappers. We laid out a plan over coffee, as if we were planning a fishing trip. That's how calm Ray was, how methodical. He had spent 25 years on the force, corruption, gang stings, RICO cases. This was amateur hour. I looped in my two army buddies next. Kyle and Marcus. We'd been through deployments in Kandahar together, where trust was currency and hesitation got people killed. I sent them the chat history. Within minutes, they were on board. We'll be your shadows, Kyle texted. Nobody lays a finger on you. I kept playing my role. At home, I pretended to soften. I told Clara I was thinking things over, that maybe we could try counseling. She clung to the hope like a lifeline, and I let her. Meanwhile, I was installing hidden microphones and backup trackers in my clothing, setting up encrypted backups for every file, every message. Just in case. The company's year-end party was 2 weeks away. Clara was unusually chipper as the date approached, more affectionate, more careful, like she was trying to glue a shattered mirror back together without anyone noticing the cracks. Then, one night, as we lay in bed, she whispered, "You'll come with me to the party, right?" I turned my head slightly. Of course. We haven't danced in a while. She smiled. That same smile she used when we first met. But this time, I saw right through it. Behind her eyes wasn't love. It was calculation. She was seeing how far she could push the lie, how convincing she could be. And I matched her tone perfectly, leaning in to kiss her forehead, pretending everything was fine. Over the next several days, I monitored her every move. She texted Lila and the other office witches constantly. I had their whole plan mapped out like a war strategy. They'd wait until I'd had a couple of drinks. Lila would hand me a glass laced with the sedative. I'd start to fade, slump in my chair, and they'd usher me to our hotel room, tucking me in. Then Clara would slip away to Marcus's suite. Room 1708. 10:45 p.m. They even joked about the backup plan in case I didn't drink the sedative. Fake an argument and make me storm out, giving Clara an excuse to stay behind. They covered every angle, except one. They underestimated how much I already knew. I coordinated with Ray and my two friends to monitor the ballroom that night. Ray, disguised in a waiter's tuxedo, would swap the drugged glass. Kyle and Marcus would be waiting nearby for the real action. When Clara and her lover got comfortable. When the night finally arrived, it took everything in me not to punch Marcus the second I saw him. Clara walked out of the bathroom dressed in a black satin gown that barely reached her knees, her hair curled, lips painted red. She looked incredible, like a fantasy. But not for me. She was dressing for someone else. "Do I look okay?" she asked. I nodded. "You look amazing." I lied with a smile. At the party, everyone pretended to be friendly. Clara's co-workers gave me fake smiles, offered drinks, praised her as such a lucky woman. I sipped my drink, waiting for Lila to make her move. It didn't take long. Around 9:45, she sauntered over, holding 2 glasses of Crown Royal, my favorite. "Here you go, Daniel," she purred. "You looked like you needed something smooth." I played it perfectly, hesitated, then took the glass. "Thanks, Lila. You're always so thoughtful." She grinned like she'd already won. Ray passed by seconds later, clearing empty glasses from the table. As Lila turned to talk to someone else, I switched my drink with the untouched one on Ray's tray. The poison glass was gone. Logged. Preserved. Evidence. I nursed the clean drink for 15 minutes, pretending to grow drowsy. Clara danced with Marcus, her hands too familiar on his shoulders, her eyes shining with excitement. I sat back, slouched, let my eyelids droop. When Clara leaned down and whispered, "Honey, are you okay?" I didn't answer. She kissed my cheek. "I'll be back soon." Then they vanished. Ray followed them discreetly. Kyle and Marcus got the room number confirmed. At 10:45 p.m. sharp, the 4 of us stood outside room 1708. Ray knocked. "New York Police Department," he said. "Open the door." We heard Marcus's voice from inside. "What's this about?" Ray flashed his old badge through the peephole. Moments later, the door opened. Ray stepped aside, and I walked in. Camera rolling, knuckles clenched, betrayal searing through my veins. This wasn't revenge anymore. This was justice. Walking into that ballroom, hand in hand with Clara, was like walking onto a stage where everyone already knew the ending, except the lead actor. I had to remind myself, again and again, to stay calm, stay in character. One misstep, and the entire plan would unravel. Clara looked stunning. She wore a midnight black dress that clung to her in all the right places, with a plunging neckline and those sheer black stockings she knew drove me crazy. Her makeup was flawless, her heels loud against the marble floor. But it wasn't for me. That part burned. She leaned in as we entered. "You okay?" "Just nervous," I said with a chuckle. "You know how I hate these events." She smiled, squeezing my hand. "Tonight will be fun." Yeah, for someone. The place was buzzing with music and chatter. The company had spared no expense. Live jazz band, 5-course meals, string lights strung across chandeliers. I scanned the room quickly. Ray stood near the bar, blending in perfectly in his waiter's outfit. Kyle and Marcus were posted near the elevators, out of sight, but ready to move. I gave them a slight nod. Clara was quickly swept away by her pack of co-workers, Lila, Marcy, and the others. They fawned over her dress, complimented her makeup, but their eyes kept darting to me, calculating, watching, timing. Then I saw him, Marcus Langford, standing near the dance floor, glass of champagne in hand, that smug British grin plastered across his face. He locked eyes with Clara and raised his glass ever so slightly. She blushed. It was like watching a nightmare in slow motion. I kept my distance, made small talk with a few of Clara's colleagues, let the act sink in deeper. When Clara finally returned, Marcus followed close behind, hand casually brushing the small of her back. "Daniel," he said with mock warmth. "Still crunching those numbers, are you?" I forced a smile. "Still charming secretaries into scandal, Marcus?" He laughed, the kind of laugh that oozed arrogance. "Touché, my friend. Touché." Then, as if testing me, he turned to Clara. "May I borrow your wife for a dance?" Before I could say anything, Clara looked at me, just long enough to pretend it mattered, then nodded. "Just one." And just like that, he whisked her away. I watched them glide across the dance floor, his hand resting too low on her back, his mouth too close to her ear. She was laughing, spinning, lost in him. If anyone had looked closely, they might have seen my fingers tightening around the glass in my hand. But I held firm. Lila approached around 10 p.m., wearing a slinky gold dress and that same fox-like grin. "Daniel, you're looking tired." "Big day." I nodded. "Could use something strong." She held up 2 glasses of Crown Royal. "That's what I figured." "Showtime." I took the glass from her hand, gave her a half-smile, and pretended to sip. Ray, right on cue, swept by with a tray of empty glasses. With a quick sleight of hand, the switch was made. The drugged glass disappeared from my hand like it had never existed. I sat down at our table, pretending to grow heavier with each passing minute. My posture slouched, my eyelids drooped, and my breathing slowed. People glanced my way and whispered, "Perfect." Clara returned to me sometime around 10:30 p.m., wiping invisible sweat from her brow. "You okay?" she asked, brushing my cheek with her fingertips. "You're looking a little pale." "Just tired," I murmured, slurring my words slightly. "Had too much." She leaned in and kissed my forehead. "I'll get you to the room, baby. Let's get you some rest." Right on schedule. Lila and Marcy appeared moments later, helping Clara escort me out of the ballroom. I kept my body limp, head slumped as they led me toward the elevators. My heart pounded behind my ribs, but I kept my breathing steady. The trap was set. The prey had taken the bait. We reached our hotel room. Clara leaned down and whispered, "I'll be back soon. Just going to say goodbye to Marcus." Goodbye. The door closed behind them. They didn't even lock it. I sat up, wide awake. I pulled out my phone and texted Ray. "They're on the move." Seconds later, confirmation came. Room 1708. 10:45 sharp. I splashed cold water on my face, checked my gear, then grabbed my jacket. My blood was boiling, but my mind was clear. I stepped into the hallway and headed for the elevators. Kyle and Marcus were already waiting, their faces stone cold. Ray joined us a minute later, holding the key card we had cloned earlier. As the elevator door slid open and we stepped inside, I took a deep breath. This was it. The betrayal had played its final act. Now it was my turn. We moved quickly, silently, like a trained unit. No words, just purpose. The 4 of us stood outside room 1708, the number seared into my memory like a brand. My heart pounded in my ears, but my hands were steady. I could hear laughter through the door, his voice, hers. The sound made my jaw clench so tight I thought my teeth might crack. Ray stepped forward and knocked. 3 firm raps. From inside, Marcus's voice rang out, casual and careless. Who is it? This is Sergeant Walker, NYPD. We need to speak with you. Urgently. There was a pause. Then shuffling. Then silence. Ray held up his old badge to the peephole. It was legitimate enough to get us through the door. Moments later, the handle turned. The door creaked open, and there he stood. Marcus Langford. Shirtless. Smug. But his smirk died the moment he saw me standing behind Ray, phone in hand, recording. My army brothers flanked me like shadows. Kyle took 1 step forward and shoved the door wide open. What is this? Marcus began. But before he could finish, Marcus and Kyle rushed in and pinned him against the wall. His arms were yanked behind his back with military precision. He was no match. And then I saw her. Clara, lying in the middle of the bed, wrapped in a white sheet. Her mouth fell open as her eyes met mine. Her expression went from surprise to terror. Her voice cracked. Daniel. I walked in slowly, camera still recording, my heart a stone in my chest. Yes, Clara, I said, voice low, controlled. It's me, the husband you tried to drug. She scrambled to cover herself, stammering something about how it's not what it looks like, but I cut her off with a single raised hand. Oh, it's exactly what it looks like, I said, turning my gaze to Marcus. And this is the guy you risked everything for? He looked even smaller up close. Pale, trembling. His polished charm had evaporated the moment the tables turned. Daniel, please, Clara cried. You don't understand. I laughed, cold and bitter. Oh, I understand more than you think. I understand how you plotted with your friends to drug me. How you planned to sneak off to this room, sleep with this arrogant piece of garbage, then crawl back into bed with me like nothing happened. Her face went white. I turned to Marcus. You got anything clever to say now? No accountant jokes? No more little man insults? He said nothing. His eyes were fixed on the brass knuckles I pulled from my pocket. Oh, now you're quiet, I muttered. That's disappointing. Wait. Daniel, don't, Clara screamed, but it was too late. The first punch shattered his nose with a sickening crunch. Blood sprayed across the wall as he screamed. Kyle and Marcus held him steady, but I only hit him hard enough to make a point. I wasn't there to kill him. I was there to make sure he never forgot me. I wiped the blood off my knuckles and turned back to Clara, who was sobbing now, crumpled on the bed like a broken doll. I'm going to say this once, I said, voice cold and final. You won't be coming home tomorrow. In fact, you won't be calling or texting me at all. By 9 a.m., you'll be served with divorce papers, right here in this hotel. She shook her head, begging. No, Daniel. Please. I love you. I made a mistake, just one mistake. I thought it was just for one night. One night that destroyed everything. I stepped closer. You think I care how many times it happened? Once was enough. Once was betrayal. You drugged me, Clara. You let your friends drug me. You stripped away my dignity so you could chase a promotion and sleep with a man who laughed in my face. She sobbed, reaching out. Please, I swear to you, it meant nothing. Then you gave up everything for nothing, I replied. I looked around the room, at the messy sheets, the wine bottle on the nightstand, the discarded clothes on the floor. This wasn't a mistake. This was premeditated treason. I handed her a copy of the divorce documents. You'll get the house. That's it. I've already drained the joint accounts, canceled your credit cards. I'm keeping the retirement funds and the savings. You'll be responsible for every bill from now on. Utilities, the mortgage, good luck. Clara collapsed into tears. And one more thing, I said, pausing in the doorway. If you refuse to sign those papers, I'll send this video to your parents, your boss, everyone in your company. Oh, and Marcus? I'll be sending the footage to his wife, too. I'm sure she'll be thrilled. Her voice cracked. You wouldn't. I turned to her one last time, eyes hollow. Try me. I walked out of room 1708 and never looked back. That night, everything ended. And it was only the beginning of her downfall. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even try. I sat in my own hotel room, staring out the window as the city lights flickered below. I kept hearing her voice echo in my head. It was just one night. It meant nothing. But what she didn't realize was that her one night had shattered a life I had spent years building. A marriage. A future. A family we'd never have now. At exactly 8:59 a.m., I received a confirmation text. Papers delivered. Signed. Notarized. It's done. I let out a slow breath. Not relief, exactly, just closure. Later that afternoon, everything began to unravel for Clara and her partners in betrayal. You see, I hadn't stopped at the divorce. I had already sent the text logs, screenshots, and video footage to multiple people, their HR department, the board of directors, even an anonymous tip to the local police. Because this wasn't just cheating. It was premeditated criminal activity. By Monday morning, Clara, Lila, and Marcy were escorted out of their office building by security, terminated without severance. Their reputations? Destroyed. And that was just the beginning. Ray had spoken to a few contacts in law enforcement and handed over all the evidence. The conspiracy to drug me, the acquisition of illegal sedatives, the attempted cover-up. Within a week, subpoenas were issued. Phones were seized. Statements taken. Clara was charged with conspiracy to commit assault and use of a controlled substance. So were her accomplices. Marcy, whose husband had stolen the sedatives from his pharmaceutical firm, faced the heaviest charges: possession, distribution, and intent to harm. She got 10 years. Lila received 2. Clara? 2 years in prison, plus probation. Marcus Langford wasn't spared either. The footage of him with Clara, combined with multiple reports of sexual harassment at the workplace, led to his termination. His wife filed for divorce shortly after. When he tried to sue me for assault, the jury laughed him out of the courtroom. Once they saw the full scope of the conspiracy, the assault charge was dropped. I walked out a free man. He walked out with a shattered face and a ruined life. I didn't rejoice, not really. This wasn't triumph. This was justice. Cold, clean, and final. While the others rotted behind bars, I rebuilt my life brick by brick. It took time. Trust doesn't come easy when you've been burned like that. But life has a strange way of balancing itself. 2 years after the divorce, I met Gloria, a woman with fire in her heart and honesty in her soul. She knew my story, every dark, ugly corner of it. And she stayed. Not out of pity, but out of strength. Real, unwavering loyalty. We married after a year, but only after she agreed to sign a prenuptial agreement. I wasn't taking chances. Once bitten, twice cautious. She understood. Now I'm 31. We have a son, Jason, and a baby girl, Emily. The very names Clara and I once dreamed of. Except now, they belong to a life that's real, stable, and untainted by lies. I hold them close every night and remind myself that even the deepest betrayal can be survived. You just have to be willing to walk through hell to get to the other side. Clara never remarried. I know that because she still checks my social media. Every post, every picture of Jason's soccer games, Emily's birthday cake, family trips to the lake. She sees it all. And she knows. She knows this was the life she was supposed to have, the family we were supposed to build. But she chose ambition over love, a one-night thrill over a lifetime of loyalty. Her downfall wasn't sudden. It was slow. After prison, she tried to return to the industry, but no one would touch her with a 10-foot pole. Word had spread. HR departments talk. Resumes were shredded the moment her name appeared. She ended up taking low-wage jobs, waitressing, stocking shelves, anything to pay off legal fees and survive. Marcy's husband filed for divorce while she was behind bars. He lost his job too. After it was revealed he'd supplied the drug, their family fell apart. Lila lost custody of her children when her ex-husband found out she was involved in a drugging plot. None of them escaped unscathed. As for Marcus, last I heard, he was living in a small studio apartment in Queens. Jobless, divorced, on probation. His once glamorous life reduced to a faded memory. He'd gone from first-class flights and 5-star hotels to bus rides and microwave dinners. I suppose it's poetic. They thought they were untouchable, clever, powerful, unstoppable. But in the end, they destroyed themselves. Not because of me, but because of who they chose to be. And I simply let the truth do its work. Some nights, I still think about the moment I stood in that hotel room, watching Clara scramble to cover herself, her voice shaking, pleading with me not to walk away. It wasn't her naked body that haunted me. It was the look in her eyes, the instant she realized she had lost everything. But make no mistake, I didn't mourn her. Not anymore. The woman I had loved no longer existed. She was gone the moment she decided to poison me for one night of pleasure and ambition. You don't come back from something like that, not in a marriage, not in life. Some betrayals leave scars too deep to heal. Clara served her time, just like the others. And while they all faced their share of punishment, what came after was worse: obscurity, irrelevance, a slow, painful fading into a world that no longer had space for them. And yet, she never truly let go of me. I found out through friends, mutual connections, even her former coworkers. She'd ask about me, casually at first. "Have you seen Daniel lately?" Then more often, more desperate. She created fake accounts to follow my socials. I knew they were hers, always liking posts that mentioned the kids, always appearing the same night I posted family photos. I didn't block her. I wanted her to see. I wanted her to watch the life she gave up unfold, moment by moment, without her. Gloria and I had everything Clara and I once dreamed of, except we built it on trust, not deception. Jason learned to ride his bike last summer. Emily just said her first words last week, "Dada," right before bedtime. And every time I hold them in my arms, every time Gloria smiles at me like I'm the only man on earth, I remember what I almost lost and what Clara threw away. One night, Gloria and the kids were asleep, and I was up late scrolling through some old cloud files. I stumbled on the original footage again. Room 1708, Clara on the bed, Marcus frozen against the wall, my voice cutting through like a blade. I didn't press play. I didn't need to. The images were burned into my memory forever. I stared at the thumbnail for a while, then smiled and deleted it. I didn't need revenge anymore. I had already won. But Clara, she never did. After prison, she tried everything: new cities, job applications, even rebranding herself on social media. But it never worked. Her record followed her like a shadow. Every time she got close to something new, her past came back like a ghost knocking at the door. Eventually, she settled into a small apartment on the edge of the city. Alone. Her friends gone. Her name tainted. Her future reduced to nothing but memories of what she once had. A mutual friend told me she never stopped talking about me. "Daniel was the only man who ever truly loved me," she'd say. "He would have given me everything." And I would have. But she gave it away for a man who left her with shame, prison time, and nothing but broken promises. One rainy evening, about 5 years after our divorce, I got a message request from one of those anonymous accounts. I almost ignored it, almost. But something made me open it. It was a photo. Jason and Emily, holding hands at the zoo. I'd posted it earlier that day. Beneath it was a single message. They were supposed to be ours. "I'm sorry." No name. No further messages. But I knew who it was. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The silence would say more than words ever could. Because the truth is, Clara didn't regret what she did. Not really. She regretted that she got caught. That her carefully planned betrayal was exposed before she could sweep it under the rug and move on like nothing happened. But me? I made sure she never forgot. I made sure she lived every day remembering what she gave up. The house. Sold. The bank accounts. Emptied. The career. Burned to ash. And me? I thrived. Sometimes justice doesn't come from a courtroom. It comes from living well, while the people who tried to destroy you are forced to watch from the sidelines. Clara will never know peace. Not because I wish it on her, but because she won't allow herself to have it. Every time she sees a child laugh, every time she passes a man in a suit kissing his wife's forehead, she'll think of me, of what we were, of what she destroyed. And that is the final chapter. Not mine. Hers. There's a lesson in all of this that life doesn't let you skip, no matter how old or wise you think you are. Betrayal doesn't start with an affair. It starts with dishonesty, with secrets, with small compromises that grow into life-shattering choices. I learned that love, no matter how deep, cannot survive without trust. And forgiveness should never be confused with tolerance for disrespect. For those of us in the later chapters of life, let this be a reminder. Protect your peace, your dignity, and your boundaries. If someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. Don't make excuses for deceit. And never be afraid to walk away from something that no longer honors your worth. Life is too short to spend it clinging to what was. We must honor what we still have and invest in relationships built on loyalty, not illusion. The past will always try to whisper, but it's the choices we make now that define the life we leave behind.